let me show you some of the things I cooked for my very fussy family this week. We're starting off with a day where once again there were too many vegetables crowding the fridge, which is not a bad thing. However, I decided to roast them. Look at all the bonus material I found inside this large pepper. There was literally a new baby pepper inside the big pepper. Cute Russian matryoshka situation. Unfortunately, no matter how cute, they will all still get chopped up, roasted and eaten. As our boys are growing, I really struggle to get used to the amount of food that they are eating. Every time I'm preparing things like these veggies, there seem to be so many of them. I think we will have leftovers for at least 2 days, and then we end up eating everything in one sitting. Not that I'm complaining about them eating too many veggies, it's just that it seems like I can never catch up. I don't buy store-bought seasoning for roasted veggies, mainly because I feel like most of them hide the actual flavor of the vegetables. So I just use some garlic powder, onion salt and celery salt and some black pepper. I mix all the seasoning into a good quality olive oil and evenly spread over the chopped up veggies with a brush. I feel like this is the best and easiest way to get just the right amount of oil without the veggies being too oily or too dry. They get roasted in the oven on the highest setting, not sure for how long. I just keep on checking until I see they're done. Moving on to cherry tomatoes to make my favorite pasta sauce ever. Sometimes I use other vegetables than tomatoes, like peppers or celeriac, however, today I'm gonna keep it simple. The one thing I never skip adding is some crumbled feta cheese. After all, I think it's the combination of tomatoes and feta cheese that make me really love this sauce. You can roast them together or add the cheese after, it doesn't really make a whole world of difference. Olive oil on top. And voila! I can't wait for the day when transmitting smells will be a thing. If you manage to stop yourself from eating the tomatoes and feta before they cool down, I can tell you it's always a struggle for me. Well, if you still have them, simply blend them and you'll end up with the most delicious pasta sauce ever, at least in my opinion. I'm gonna put some in the fridge for the next couple of days. And then I add some chickpeas to the blender jar and shake it well. This is no magic, really just a simple way to save myself some dishes and get most of the sauce out of the jar. My younger kid will have this with his dinner today because he doesn't like roasted pepper or roasted zucchini. Of course, what's new? If everybody else likes them, there must be someone who doesn't. And who am I to judge? I'm also preparing some fried smoked cheese for the boys, which I myself wouldn't eat if my life depends on it. I'm pretty sure you already know the whole shebang of frying things: flour first, egg, and then breadcrumbs. So instead of explaining the obvious, I wanted to share some really good advice I received recently. And it has nothing to do with frying cheese, or frying, or even cooking. Actually, the quickest jump back to cooking. I also add sourdough discard and mustard to my egg. Anyhow, did you ever notice how vile people get when communicating online sometimes? And now I don't mean those who are bullies even in real life. Because let me tell you, this friend of mine is definitely not a bully. In online settings, however, sometimes it happens to the best of us that we sort of forget that we're still talking to a real-life person with real-life feelings. My very embarrassed friend confessed that she had left quite a mean comment on an anonymous Facebook post, only to discover later it had been a colleague of hers whom she had been talking to. Obviously, things got a bit hairy between them, and no amount of explaining and apologizing seemed to help. You know what I'm gonna do from now on, my friend told me. When talking to someone online, I will pretend I will be meeting this person face to face later on that day, just to keep myself fully accountable for how I word anything I might choose to put online. And I really like this. Let's stay kind to each other, online or offline. But back to cooking. Here I am plating the fried cheese for my older son with a ton of veggies on the side. I believe it isn't always what you eat, but how you eat it. even fried food. Unless you eat it every day, for every meal, sandwiched between 2 slices of processed bread. My younger son is having his cheese with some sliced cucumber and chickpeas with a roasted tomato and feta sauce. And I couldn't resist stealing some of the roasted tomatoes with feta before blending them, so that's what I'm having with quinoa and some other roasted veggies. This might seem like a lot of things that I cooked in one evening, however there will be a lot of leftovers that we will live from for another couple of days. Well, maybe not a lot of leftovers, but definitely some. In fact, here I am the next day, eating some pasta with a roasted veggie sauce, with some more roasted veggies and chickpeas. Now let me show you how I prepare one of our breakfast staples. We have weeks where no amount of bananas is ever enough, and we have weeks where I buy some and they just end up going brown somewhere in the cupboard. Sometimes I freeze them to use in smoothies later on, but most of the time I just make this easy to make, easy to store, easy to eat breakfast. If someone should watch and care enough for the exact amounts, I can start adding them, but at this point I never really measure anything and have no motivation to start anytime soon. If you do want exact recipes, please let me know in the comments. For now, let's just say it's about 3 to 4 bananas, about 3 heaped spoons of Greek yogurt and some sourdough discard. Maybe half a cup to a cup, 2 scoops of protein powder, and 1 packet of cinnamon sugar, 3 eggs, and then I just blend everything together. I don't bake by recipe, I bake by consistency. In this case, that means I pour the liquid ingredients in a bowl and add flour until it seems just about the right thickness. I'm using a whole wheat semolina, simply because that's what I had at home. Complex recipes that require special ingredients are just not my kind of thing. I imagine most people read a recipe, go buy the ingredients, and then follow the recipe to bake or cook something. I see a recipe and start changing it in my mind. I would replace this with that and that with this, depending on what I have at home, or any ideas I might get about how to make the recipe better for you. Today I'm using melted butter, next time it could easily be coconut oil. For me, cooking and baking is a creative process, so I add an approximate amount of baking powder and pumpkin spice mix. How much? However much feels right. And it looks a little dry, so I'm going in with some more melted butter. If you're one of those people who buy chocolate chips, please do yourself a favor and stop. They are usually so overpriced for the quality of chocolate they are made of, and it literally takes just a couple of seconds to chop up some chocolate. Once everything is mixed together, it goes on a baking tray covered in baking paper and in the oven. I don't baby my cakes too much and bake all of them at around 170 degrees Celsius approximately. If they don't like it, tough luck. I'm not passionate about baking, especially complicated cakes. I'm more passionate about preparing nutritiously rich foods for my family that you can't really buy in a shop. If I want a cake, like a fluffy sweet traditional cake, I would rather go buy it than bake it myself. So if I'm baking at home, it would usually be to prepare a breakfast or a snack that's better for me and my family than what you would normally find in shops. Always trying to sneak in some extra fruit, some nuts or seeds, maybe some extra protein. You know what I mean. These banana bars are already full of good stuff, but sometimes we like to put some nut butter on top or Greek yogurt or both. I would bake something sweet-ish like this at least once a week, so that we have a nice snack or breakfast option ready whenever we need. Beef. Another one of those things that we can never ever agree on at our house. Some would only prefer to eat burgers and steaks, some would only eat it minced, and some of us don't really like it at all. This stew will be more or less just for the grown-ups in the house, because none of our boys like it. It all starts with frying up a little bit of smoked bacon in olive oil. I sprinkle some flour on the chopped up beef and add it to the pan. My obsessive nature definitely at least doubles my cooking time. Why? Notice how I place every piece in the pan individually and then proceed to flip them one by one again. Why can't I just stir it like a normal person would? I don't know. A little bit of red wine, tomato sauce, some more tomato sauce, and a good stir. As for the veggies, we're gonna chop up some celeriac, celery stalks, and carrot. This recipe is more or less what my Italian mother-in-law taught me. However, the smoked bacon and the celeriac are my own additions. Exactly this same recipe works great even with chicken. I add some natural stock cubes and water. As for the spices, I really prefer to keep things simple, so I'm just adding a couple of bay leaves and a sprinkle of caraway seeds all over my kitchen. Then I cover the stew and cook it for very long at a low temperature. The longer the better really, but I aim for at least 2 to 3 hours. When the stew is nearly done cooking, I chop up some potatoes. These are best added for only like the last half an hour so they don't overcook. After a good stir, I cover the stew with the lid again and just wait for the potatoes to cook. I've been a vegetarian for over 20 years. After that, I got used to eating chicken quite easily, but it took me quite a while with beef. To this day, I prefer when it's mixed with a lot of other ingredients, otherwise the flavor can be a bit too much for me to handle. That's why this stew is one of my favorites. We don't like smoothies, but this one we do. I blend pureed mango, some Greek yogurt, and protein custard. The pureed mango is optional. I just put it in there because I wanted to use it up. What's not optional is frozen mango. And frozen strawberries, they go so well together. Vanilla protein powder. And a splash of plant milk. I add the tiniest little bit of powdered greens when the boys are not watching. It's not a lot, but it adds up over time. Now the key to the ice cream-like consistency is switching the blender on and off while you blend. If you just keep it on, it will warm up, melt all the frozen ingredients, and you end up with a liquid smoothie. Do it my way, and your smoothie will have the texture of an ice cream. And this is the only smoothie texture that me and my boys like. We serve it in a bowl topped with chocolate-covered lentils, cereal, and frozen berries. At least that's what we did today. Toppings can be whatever your heart desires. I don't think I can call this dinner fish and chips, so I'll try to go with fries and fish. Fish is not an easy thing to like, especially for children, so I try to accept it, and I'm very happy that at least one of my kids is happy to eat some salmon. Same seasoning for everything, no extra trouble at all. Aside from the mixed seasoning, I also add some lemon oil to olive oil and pour that over the fish. Easy peasy, it all goes in the oven. In the meantime, I cook some asparagus from frozen. I'm keeping the water it's been boiled in, and I'll show you later on for what. I separate the tender tops from the chewy bottoms, and I save the bottoms together with the water they boiled in. Let me show you the sauce I like to prepare to go with the fish. Add lemon zest or lemon oil into Greek yogurt, soy sauce, mustard, and maple syrup. My youngest one currently doesn't like fish, even though he used to go crazy for it when he was a baby. What else can I do than wait and hope one day he likes it again? In the meantime, he can have baked beans instead. I think this boy single-handedly consumes a ton of legumes throughout the year. So tonight he'll be eating fries, baked beans, and some asparagus. You can see I am giving him the teeniest tiniest little bit because he doesn't really love it, but he doesn't hate it either, so that's a compromise. Me and Dad will be having some sea bream, and my older son some salmon. It's not the healthiest of fish, and if you wonder why, it's because salmon grow quite large and they live for long enough to accumulate quite a lot of heavy metals from the sea. Still, it's fish, a good source of protein and omega fatty acids. Last plate to prepare is mine. And just like that, another one of our typical hodgepodge dinners is ready to eat. I have to say, I really enjoyed this one. It's finally soup season and no one's more excited than me. Actually, I know of 2 people who are not excited at all, and it's my kids. They're not the biggest fans of soups. So this one will be just for me. Maybe I'll share it with my husband, but let's see about that. I already chopped up my fennel, and now I'm gonna prepare the celery stalks. I would normally use celeriac, but I ran out and it's not easy to find in our local shops, so I'll have to use what I have in the fridge. I'm putting in a little bit of garlic and a little bit of onion. I'm trying to take it really easy with both, because my husband doesn't like garlic and I don't like onions, so if I put too much of either of those, this dinner could very quickly turn into a failure. Next, I'm chopping up some butternut squash and taking the seeds out of it. Seems like this was the week of interesting finds inside my vegetables, because look what I found inside the pumpkin. I actually tried to plant it in a pot to see what happens, but it was dead within 2 days. I'm generally not great with starting plants from cuttings and stuff, so it was no surprise really. For this soup, it really doesn't matter how you chop the pumpkin, because it's all gonna get blended in the end. That's why I do large chunks, mainly to save myself some time. Usually I would add a sweet potato, but today I don't have one, so I'm just adding 1 regular potato. I arrange all the veggies in a lined baking tray and pour some olive oil on top. A bit of salt and black pepper. The smell when they come out of the oven, one of my favorite smells in the world. Roasted veggies. Do you remember when I saved the water from boiling the asparagus and the chewy bits? This is them, the perfect stock for our roasted pumpkin soup. Once everything is in the blender, we simply puree together. Not even today did I manage to convince my boys of how delicious soups are, and so I'm preparing some tofu for them. Well, for one of them, because the other one decided he'd rather eat baked beans every single day. So here we have another finished fussy eater's dinner. Soup, rice with tofu, rice with baked beans, some lettuce and some cucumber salad.
Okay, thanks for watching and see you soon. This is not Mom, by the way, if you can't tell.